The world once again stands on the brink of a great confrontation. Only this time, it doesn't look like the Cold War of the 20th century, nor the bloody conflicts of the past. It's quiet, invisible, but its outcome will decide everything. The economy, technology, even how we think and what we believe to be true. This is a war for the future, a war for control over information, over attention, over the human mind. And two giants have already clashed in this war: the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. Just 40 years ago, no one could imagine that China would one day rival the United States. In the late 1970s, China was a poor agrarian nation of over 1 billion people, most living on just a few dollars a month. After decades of chaos, cultural revolution, and isolation, the country was on its knees. But in 1978, everything changed. A man named Deng Xiaoping came to power and said a phrase that would change history. It doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice. Behind that simple sentence was an idea that would transform China. For the first time, a communist state opened its doors to capital, investors, and markets. And that became the start of the most rapid economic transformation in human history. America and its allies gladly welcomed the new China. U.S. corporations saw in it an endless source of cheap labor. In the 1980s and 1990s, industrial zones, free trade areas, ports and factories began to rise across the country. Apple, Nike, General Motors, Dell, all of them moved production there. Millions of Chinese people escaped poverty, and American companies multiplied their profits. For Washington, it seemed like the perfect deal. China worked, America earned. Cheap goods flooded the world. On store shelves from New York to Berlin, one label dominated: Made in China. But China never planned to remain a factory. It was watching, studying, and learning. Behind every shipment of exported goods stood millions of silent observations. Engineers copied technologies, improved them, refined them. Students went to Harvard and MIT and came back not just with diplomas, but with knowledge, experience, and ambition. China understood one thing: the world doesn't respect the weak. And if you want to be respected, you must be strong. While Western countries debated politics and freedom of speech, Beijing was writing 5-year plans, not for one election cycle, but for generations ahead. The state decided what mattered: electronics, energy, space, transportation, education. Everything was calculated, planned, directed. China wasn't chasing quick victories. It was building a foundation. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. That moment triggered its meteoric rise. The economy grew at double-digit rates. In one generation, the country achieved what had taken others centuries. Megacities rose from impoverished villages. High-speed trains, skyscrapers, massive metro systems. China was transforming before the world's eyes. At the same time, new companies were emerging. Names that would soon reshape the global landscape: Huawei, Tencent, Alibaba, BYD, DJI. These were not traditional corporations. They were private in form, but aligned with the state in function. China didn't reject the market. It harnessed it, disciplined it, guided it, and that was the essence of its model. While the West trusted chaos, China trusted control. By 2010, China had become the world's second-largest economy. By 2020, it was the manufacturing center of the planet. But that wasn't enough. Beijing didn't just want to produce, it wanted to invent. Not just assemble iPhones, but design them. Not just buy planes, but build them. Not just use the dollar, but create its own financial system. That was the moment China stopped being a student. It became a rival. For a long time, America refused to believe it. In Washington, they thought China was still dependent on Western technologies, on global finance, on the dollar. But dependence turned out to be mutual. Without Chinese factories, the U.S. economy stalled. Without Chinese materials, supply chains collapsed. Even Apple, the pride of Silicon Valley, couldn't assemble a single iPhone without China. In 2018, everything changed. The United States declared a trade war. Under Donald Trump's America First agenda, tariffs were imposed on hundreds of billions of dollars in Chinese goods. He wanted to bring manufacturing home and slow Beijing's rise. But China didn't flinch. It countered. And when Washington blacklisted Huawei, Beijing struck back strategically. Rare earth elements, 17 critical metals needed for chips, batteries, magnets, and weapons, turned out to be China's domain. 90% of global refining was under its control. When Beijing restricted exports, the global industry panicked. It was the first real weapon of the new century, not missiles but resources. Meanwhile, America tried to defend its technological supremacy. It passed the CHIPS Act, nearly $300 billion to bring semiconductor production back to U.S. soil. But rebuilding lost capacity proved hard. Factories take years, engineers are scarce, and China was already moving forward. Despite sanctions, China's SMIC began producing 7-nanometer chips, nearly at Taiwan's level. And Taiwan is the most dangerous flashpoint on Earth. A small island that holds the key to global technology. There stands TSMC, the company that makes 90% of the world's advanced chips. Without TSMC, iPhones, Teslas, satellites, none of them work. China considers Taiwan its territory. The US considers it a cornerstone of regional security. One mistake there could ignite a global catastrophe. American aircraft carriers patrol the Pacific. Chinese warships circle Taiwan. Every maneuver, every flight, every radar lock could be the spark. But both sides know an open war would destroy everything. So the battle continues on other fronts: economic, technological, informational. Information itself has become a weapon. We live in an age where truth is shaped by algorithms. Social media is the new battlefield. TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, WeChat, all of them shape perception. The US accuses TikTok of spying and manipulation. China replies, how is Facebook any better after influencing elections and selling data? There are no innocents in this war. Every algorithm, every recommendation is a bullet in the battle for the human mind. But there's another front: infrastructure. China is building an empire without armies. The Belt and Road Initiative is a vast web of trade routes, ports, power plants, and railways linking Asia, Africa, and Europe. Beijing isn't invading, it's investing. Countries take loans, build infrastructure, and repay with loyalty. China doesn't threaten, it buys influence. More than 150 nations are now part of the project. It's not colonization, it's a new kind of dependence. When your power plant is built by Chinese companies and your debt is in yuan, saying no becomes impossible. The US calls it a debt trap, China calls it partnership, but the result is the same. Power can be bought, and Beijing buys it systematically. It invests in Africa, Latin America, the Middle East. It offers an alternative to a world tired of Western lectures. America, meanwhile, is losing its greatest weapon: trust. After Iraq, Afghanistan, the 2008 crisis, and social media scandals, the image of the US as the defender of freedom and order no longer convinces. China exploits that fatigue, saying we don't interfere, we just build. At the same time, Beijing is building a parallel financial system. It promotes yuan-based trade, a digital yuan, and its own payment networks, UnionPay, CIPs, to reduce reliance on the dollar. Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Indonesia, Brazil, more and more countries are trading without the dollar. It's a quiet revolution, one America prefers not to notice. The world is no longer unipolar. After World War II, America ruled with its economy, culture, and technology. Its films, dollars, and internet shaped the planet's thinking. But now another center of power has emerged. China doesn't want to copy the West. It wants to replace it. It builds its own internet with its own laws, networks, and standards. Its own GPS, Beidou, its own space station, its own AI and digital ID system. For the West, it looks dystopian. For China, it's order. American democracy is built on individual freedom. China's model is built on social stability. For billions of people, that choice is no longer obvious. After decades of chaos and crises, many see in China not oppression, but efficiency. America remains powerful. The best universities, the biggest startups, the richest culture. But its system has slowed down. Politics divides it. Decisions stall. China, by contrast, moves like a machine, slowly but relentlessly, without pause, without opposition. Its strategy is a marathon, not a sprint. The world is now split. Half still believes in liberal values. The other half believes in discipline and control. Some seek salvation in freedom, others in order. And that's not just ideology, it's a choice of destiny. Yet there's one truth neither side admits. In this war, there will be no winners, only survivors. The world is too interconnected for anyone to triumph alone. American companies depend on Chinese factories. Chinese startups depend on American software. We are all part of the same system. And if one giant falls, the whole world shakes. America and China are not fighting for oil, not for land. They are fighting for minds, for attention, for control over what reality even means. And while they struggle for the future, we all live inside their war. Our devices are weapons. Our data is ammunition. Our attention, the battlefield. Right now, as you watch this, Washington is debating new sanctions. Beijing is opening a new chip factory. In Africa, Chinese engineers are laying railways. In California, Google's AI is learning to predict your next move. The world keeps spinning, but the axis has shifted. The war for the future is already here. It's invisible, but it's everywhere. And the question is no longer who wins, the US or China, but who survives in a world where power belongs not to armies, but to algorithms. As they fight for control over tomorrow, we live inside their war today. Every click, every like, every search, part of the battle. This isn't someone else's story, it's our age. An age of quiet, cold, intelligent war. A war for minds, a war for the future, a war that has already begun.